Hey guys, I wanted to do a little video today, and I'm out here. Beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest, a little cloudy, but springtime is here, so it's warming up. So it's just nice to get out. No, I like to get out all seasons. Anyway, today I want to talk about a political topic, and I want to talk about how you're being brainwashed politically. Um, and let me show you this stream just real quick, and then I'll get into the topic. But very beautiful. Beautiful spot here. Lots of Canadian geese and ducks and all that. So anyway, you're being brainwashed. You're being told that the issues are left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, and it's not the issue. Okay. Um, Now it's a great way to divide and conquer. For one, I'm not going to go into, nor do I necessarily know who wants to divide and conquer. But a way I could explain it more easily is, at least with the media, one aspect. They're going to sell whatever gets reactions. And to have a lot of reactions, you need an enemy and you need someone on the right side. And that's the narrative of liberal versus conservative, Democrat versus Republican fits that narrative. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how personally I feel personally I feel the ideal government is somewhere in the middle. It takes principles from the left and principles from the right. And I think there's truth to both. I think there's a reason we have both, because both work in some kind of way. And so it's not as simplistic um, as you'd think. And also, I think anyone who's done their own research enough will see that they feel themselves to be somewhere on the spectrum. They're neither all the way left nor all the way right. Okay, so to get into it, the left, let me talk about the benefits of the left and the Democratic Party. Now, the left really showed their colors and their strong suit in, I'm not sure when this was. It might have been 1800s. Um, but they came in with um, policies as far as child labor laws. The left, the Democratic Party, has fought for social justice issues, for labor issues, getting unions so that people get paid well and they get proper working conditions, safer working conditions. Democratic Party has been great with that. And I'll argue that they're no longer uh, nearly as good as they were, because it's a money game at this point, and they've gotten such a following that Democratic politicians, all they got to do is the right talking points. They got to say they'll fight for colored people, gay people, trans. Um, they'll fight for the environment, and they do good on some of these issues in some ways, but a lot of them, they say that and then they end up doing the same thing as the other side, and they fool you, just as both sides do. Now, the left. Okay, let me go to the right. So to the right, the benefits of the right. Um, America was founded on conservative principles in a lot of ways, of small government, government not over regulating, not over taxing, and staying out of the people's business. And I think that's a beautiful principle. I think there's so much good from that. But the issue that the right runs into, especially that America runs into is we've had such small government in some regards and such little regulation to corporation that they end up being big government, and they end up pulling the strings. And a huge problem that we have is government institutions accept private donors, so they end up pulling the strings, and that should not be a thing. I think we have a huge issue. Personally, myself, I'm very conservative fiscally in many ways, but I think as far as healthcare, that should be state run. And in many regards, maybe not entirely, but you can see in America the healthcare crisis is ridiculous because these insurance companies and big pharma corporations will charge whatever they want because you're not going to say no to that life changing surgery. And the problem is government's not good at spending. If you've lived for any amount of years as an adult and you've paid a little bit of attention, you might see, actually a lot of people don't know this, but government, there's a lot of waste that comes with their spending. They don't spend as well as private sector and the people do, but it's needed a lot of times. Is this state-owned industry, and I personally feel like um, the healthcare thing really stands out to me. I kind of back and forth on what other industry might benefit being partially state run. Well, I'll just say this, but I won't go down the rabbit hole with it. The housing issue is a huge issue in our nation with corporations owning um, all the properties and charging ridiculous rates. Um, so I guess lastly, I'll just go into what I might see as a good government. Now, I think that I personally am an advocate for capitalism. Um, I think capitalism is great, but I think it needs to be checked. Let me switch my microphone because my arm's getting sore. So I think capitalism lifts nations out of poverty, but I think there's a lot going for Scandinavia with their democratic socialism. And most people on the left don't realize this, but democratic socialism is a capitalist system. Um, and many parts of it in Sweden, for example, are even more privatized than America. They privatized their pension system, they privatized their education system so that they didn't go bankrupt because they were over bloated with socialist policy beforehand and it wrecked their economy. So they needed to adapt more privatized aspects in industry, but still with a good social welfare system. And Finland, for example, they actually save money on uh, on medical by the housing first policy, putting up the homeless. So they actually save money with these homes for the homeless, which is a big social welfare expense. But they save it because usually the medical bills that comes with homeless who are usually pretty sick is pretty high. Sorry guys, I don't know if the sound cut out, so I accidentally turned it off. Anyway, um, so this is an example of capitalist system working for us, which is I think of capitalism as kind of more a conservative, principled way of doing business, but with good social welfare. Uh, I personally think we could learn from democratic socialism. I think we can learn from America's economic system in many ways. I think we can learn from Japan, who has a capitalist thriving system, but they hold their corporations to the law. From what I understand, I know that they'll break up monopolies into several different companies so that smaller companies are not stamped out. So I think some government interference is necessary. And so I personally feel this whole Republican Democrat label needs to be thrown away because in a lot of ways they just end up doing the same thing really. They'll say one thing and do the same, but also no one is completely one way or another. It's all some level of a spectrum, and I think we need to learn from both. So yeah, anyway, I think that's all I got to say. I appreciate you guys listening. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.